stripes. And bright stars through the perilous fights, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sailors, that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave. Home of the brave. Home of the brave.
We welcome you to the VTF Tarifalau Global Media Network. This is the new platform of the VTF Tarifalau Global Media Network. It's called the Pacifica platform. And in this platform, the programming are done in English or other languages by the people who do the program in the platform. And as such, we would like to welcome all of you who are tuning in to this special presentation from the students from the botany class of the biology department of Utah Valley University. And as a faculty of this university, I am proud to present these students, just like the students that presented on Tuesday. This is their project, the only project that they have. Other than the paper, they turn it into the... So basically the project is they select one of the medicinal plants from the South Pacific. And once both of them agree, they turn it into me. I approve them, and then they download all the scientific studies that have been done on them, whether they have been done on the ethnobotany, the way that they were collected, and things of that nature, and also a lot of the studies that have been done scientifically. Okay, the whole purpose of this class is for them to learn ethnobotany, but also enhance with ethnopharmacology, because the ethnobotany of yesterday is no longer the same as ethnobotany of today. Okay, they know how to collect medicinal plants. Now they know how to put together the ethnobotanical information. Okay, how to document them and how to publish them, in which is part of the project, and then require them to present none others than Pacific Islanders, and for a very good reason. Over 5 years ago, as having a lot of discussions with some members of the university, it occurred to me that even though I have done a lot of programming since 2015 and talk a lot about some of the medicinal plants and food plants from the Pacific Islands, a lot of the medicinal plants are not known to a lot of people. But also at the same time, after doing a survey in some of the gatherings of Pacific Islanders, would you be surprised to know that there are about over 70% of Pacific Islanders do not know our medicinal plants? That is the sad part, okay? Because we believe that the medicinal plants were left to us by our ancestors for our use, for medicinal and food, and particularly at this time for our health. Okay, and putting together the syllabus and things to do for this class, I'm grateful to the chairman of the Department of Biology, Dr. Stouffer, Michaela Stouffer. She has been very gracious in supporting this class, supporting me as a faculty and other faculties. It is the same department where we have Dr. Lavon Tonga, who is also a member of the faculty of this department. Okay, and we're so grateful to have her in the department. I only play a small part since I only teach part-time. My full-time job is working for Unicity, which is one of the companies that like to focus on metabolic health by using natural medicinal plants and other natural ingredients in order to make products. Okay, and as the students doing their presentation tonight, you will recognize that at the end of their presentation, they will share something that they think of. It will make a great products. Okay, so last year we have one pair of students that actually are making a skincare product out of the medicinal plants. Okay, so ethnopotany of yesterday, we go and talk to the healers a lot, and then we document everything. So we pay tribute to the success and great work done by Dr. Paul Allen Cox, or known in the Samoan language as Elder Koki. That is his Samoan name that was given to him. Okay, and his title name, I believe, is Nafanua. So Dr. Paul Allen Cox, who I also have been fortunate and blessed to be an associate and a good friend. And I remember when I started to get to Brigham Young University here in Provo, as we started to get things going, then he left. Dr. Allen Cox is a very well-known expert on ethnopotany, but he also took a different approach, okay? Not just the traditional like his mentor before him. If you haven't seen the movie, I believe the movie is called The Medicine Man. Sean Connery, or the 007 that you and I are familiar with, is the main actor that portrayed the life of Dr. Evan Schultz. Dr. Evan Schultz has spent 25 years among the natives of Brazil and South America. Sleep in the same place where they slept, ate the same food, and yes, he smoked the same kind of smokes that they do in there. He lived among them, and he has a love for them and respect, deep respect for the traditional healers. As you know, and I know, in Polynesia, in Hawaii, there are a lot of medicinal healers in there, particularly women and men. Okay, the same in Fiji, the same in Samoa, the same in Tonga, Cook Island, Rotuma, the same in Palau, and in everywhere else of Polynesia. All of those medicinal knowledge have come to us by way of our ancestors who perpetuated this knowledge for time. And this is one of the ways which we help to make sure that all of these plants stays, to make sure they never be gone. Okay, a lot of publication are coming through on this class, through this kind of projects. to review all the studies that have been done, where the medicinal plants are. So nowadays, a lot of the ethnobotanical research are done using a phone, where you can mark the latitude and longitude of the plant, and then it remembers Google. One of the good things about this part of the process is that you know exactly where it is. You can go back and find it. And if you do not find it in the spot where it says they were, it may be because they have been destroyed. It may be because they have been cut down in order to make way for more housing and things like that. But nevertheless, we know where they were and which island and what elevation where they were collected and who collected them. Okay, so Dr. Evan Schultz, his life is he's a PhD, well-known man, and also a Harvard professor, and he was the mentor of Dr. Paul Allen Cox, or Koki, in Samoa. Okay, I know Dr. Paul Allen Cox, just a friend. And Dr. Paul Allen Cox had been to Tonga and established the psychology places. I know that Whalemea in Uiha, there is one in Whalemea, I believe. Okay, it's not by coincidence where that place is at. Okay, so the purpose of this presentation is to present to you some of the medicinal plants of our ancestors, so that you and I know them. And what do we know about them? Not just the name, and if they have fruits, not that we just eat them, but there are medicinal values, which is the most important part. Okay, and I'll tell you why it's important. Do you know that about 25% of the pharmaceutical drugs in the market today, they trace their way back to medicinal plants? Okay, and deforestation and cutting down of trees, making ways for other things, have contributed to the loss of medicinal plants. But that loss is also comparable to the knowledge that have been lost when our ancestors died, and there are no written information of how to collect them, how to use them, and which part of the plant that we use and for what purposes. Therefore, I bring to you the knowledge of the Morinda citrifolia, or also known as noni in Hawaii and other places, known to us in Tonga and Samoa as nonu. Okay, there are about over 150 different names, common names of this plant that we call noni. And this plant, noni, is a hybrid. Okay, you can use this plant as a food and use this plant as a medicine. Interestingly, over thousands of years ago, somebody named Hippocrates once said, "Let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food." How about if you have one plant that give you both, and noni is one of them. Okay, so, and there are a lot of people who think that having products from noni are called snake oil. I remember back in 2005, I went to do a presentation in New York City, and one of the discussions there, somebody once said, well, I think noni is just one of those snake oil. So I want you to know that there are no snakes in Tonga, unless if you call Tukuhali a snake. Okay? So I don't know if snakes have any oils. I bet they do. But our ancestors have used noni for thousands of years, What more information do you need in ethnobotany for that? Now, interestingly, back in the early 1950s, somebody by the name of Dr. Oscar Levan, and Dr. Levan is a professor from the University of Hawaii and Manoa, the same university where is Dr. Pakieli Kaufusi is at as a professor of research in viruses, among other things. And among his identification of phytocompounds in the noni plant, he concluded by saying the following, and I like to quote, "There may be other erythroids," and he identified one of them. Okay? So, fast forward to 2007, I was part of the task force to put together a study of the whole plant of the noni, from the blossom to the leaves, the young and the old, the bark, the stem, the twigs, and the roots, and most importantly, the fruits of the noni. And this plant, noni, is loaded with what we call erythroids. In fact, 21 different erythroids have been identified, isolated, and verified scientifically from the noni plant. And in the fruit alone, where we make a lot of products, and Nukuhiva is one of them, there are about 17 known erythroids from the fruit itself. But every part of the plant have erythroids in them. Okay? Now, what's the big deal with erythroids, you say? If you go to Google Scholar and put in erythroids, it will bring thousands among thousands of research have been done on erythroids alone and different erythroids. Okay? It's over 100 years old that erythroids have been studied on different plants. On the noni plant, the study began in early 1950s by Dr. Oscar Levan, and then continued by Dr. Ralph Heinecke. And in 2006, Dr. Shixing Tang, Brett West, and myself identified all the erythroids from all parts of the noni. So, you know that the noni industry is a billions-dollar industry. Okay? If we have the education, food science, among others, who knows, a lot of us Pacific Islanders, we could have been making a lot of money to help support our family, our children's education, among other things. So I invite you, my friends, listeners, and viewers. By the way, you can view it on Facebook. You can view also on YouTube. You can listen to it in the biggest audience of them all, in the Wake Tariwhalau Global Media Network application. And then you have the Wake Tariwhalau Global Media Network website, and there is a dial-up phone number 360-398-4455. So this entire presentation will be in English. I invite you to share with your friends and share freely so that a lot of people will get to understand and have deep respect for the knowledge our ancestors have. And you and I know that we have deep legacy to live up to. Join me. In a few minutes, we'll take the first group and present to you the things that they have studied for the entire semester. And they were prepared for this moment. And if you have any questions, you can text it to me, 801-310-4060. You can also message to me via Messenger. You can look it up, Afapalu. Then there is a 5 minutes Q&A at the end of the 20 minutes presentation. Okay, and I will let them know of your questions, and we'll see if they do it, and I will help you and answer your question. So please share and share freely. Let me play a song while I get these guys line up. So.
DJ Peter.
DJ Gary.
To our viewers and listeners, we welcome you to the Vake Taiflau Global Media Network, Pacifica Network. Okay, and again, this presentation is entirely in English. Those who will be presenting will be also presenting entirely in English. And let me go back to the story about the erythroids. Okay, you might have never heard of this scientific terminology that is called erythroids. Okay. Now, the the project was to identify the erythroids in every part of the noni plant. Okay? And you know that the noni, every part of the noni tree is used medicinally in the South Pacific. So what we found, like if we can focus on the fruit alone, if we take 1 milliliter of the juice from the fruit, okay, squeeze the fruit, get the juice out, even those that have been used by our ancestors' way of fermenting it, and then you see that's over 70% of all the compounds that contributed to much of the health benefits of noni are erythroids. That's why erythroids is very important. Okay, I acknowledge the work by Dr. Tinda from India, New Delhi and Calcutta. Phenomenal researcher who review almost all of the plants in this world that have been known to have erythroids and done erythroid work himself. So erythroid is not a new thing. So you can Google that on Google Scholar, and then you can find thousands of articles there. And dated back over 100 years ago, the starting point for erythroid research. However, the erythroid research for noni started in the 1950s by Dr. Oscar Levin, continued by Dr. Ralph Heinecke, and continued by me, Dr. Xixing Tang, and Brett West. Okay, so we know all the phytocompounds in the noni, from the blossom or the flowers to the barks, to the leaves, the young and the old leaves, the roots, and the fruit itself. Interestingly, in the flowers of the noni plant, there are about 4 different types of erythroids in it. And like what I said before, about 17 to 18 erythroids from the fruits, 2 in the bark, 3 in the roots, okay, and also in the leaves. So perhaps I'll come back here on a different program on the Pacifica Network where we can talk entirely in English and share the whole presentation about noni. It can take 3 hours and we're not even scratching the surface of the scientific knowledge about noni. I can go from there to coconut, from there to mango, mango to taro, taro to kumara, and the taro leaves, among other things. We have been blessed by our ancestors from the South Pacific, our Pacific Islanders. A lot have been left to us. Therefore, it's up to us to know what they are, know how they use them, and what are the new scientific knowledge that we gain from the advent of scientific machinery, if you will, to analyze them so we know what's in them. Okay? So, and there will be some people who say, well, noni doesn't work. Usually it comes from people who have no idea scientifically about noni and the phytocompounds. Okay? So, and if you have, remember, if you have any questions, you always have, use my cell phone, send me a text, 801-310-4060, or through Messenger. You can search there, Alpha Palu, and then we'll let the presenters know of your questions, or anybody in the audience want to add, you are free to do that. Okay, you can write it in there during the live program, and we'd like to thank you. We'd like to acknowledge Mary Melatu Taulahi, who is one of the directors for the Global Media Network, Vake Tarifalau, for doing a great job in making sure that everything's, we don't have people that come in and do other things during the show. Okay, Lindsay Pome'e, for those of you who like the Lolo Kakaleteo. That is the owner of Lolo Kakaleteo. If you want to buy some, the phone number is 760-686-0202. And for those of you who like to buy the noni, the nukuhiva, the product I created and formulated, 682-564-7001. Okay? So, and thank you, Lindsay Dan Holler. Appreciate you being here. Esther Taylor Masima Maile. By the way, Lindsay Pome is also one of the those who do programmers here at the Vake Taiwhālau Global Media Network, and her husband, one of the directors, James Bond Pome. Esther Taylor Masima Maile, also one of those who do a lot of programs in the Vake Taiwhālau Global Media Network. One last night about the program Tākanga e Nau Fohe with her husband, Hikfo O Maile. Thank you, Esther, for being here. Feofaaki Yangito, thank you. Salote Taktaki, thank you for being here. Mele wahoi kona kupu, appreciate you being here. And so let me check on the presenters if they're ready to present. And after that, then we'll just go from there. Okay, but please share the program so that the others will benefit from the program. So, and we have some students here. So, let's see what they have there. Okay, let me play one song so I can. Who is that? Henry? And then we'll go from there. Okay.
Wait, what did he say?
So the second group, who is the second group? Parker? Let me bring it up. Oh.
Just want to bold his video. Probably on YouTube is faster. Just type.
She wrote me today that she won't come back to stay, that she'd only come back to pick up her clothes. She wrote, I must not cry, that her love for me has died, but she's found somebody else, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. Baby blue, do you know that I'm still in love with you? Now I know that you won't be here no more. How I need you, how I want you, baby blue. No, 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 no.
thank you. We we appreciate your patience with us. Um, and let's get down to it. We have one of the groups here, and you guys are group 2, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we are.
Okay, just checking. And one of the groups, the group number 2 from the class, the botany class from the biology department of Utah Valley University, here with us to start us off. So I'd like to turn the time over to them in order to introduce themselves, where are they from, and right after that, then we'll start.
All right. Well, I am Parker Morris. I'm from Utah, Provo area, American Fork. And I'm a student at UVU studying biology.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Spencer Snow. I am also from here in Utah originally. I'm a biology student here at Utah Valley University as well, and we're grateful to be here to talk about a little bit of the research review we've done this semester.
Okay, so let's make sure we don't have another audio on. Probably you need to turn that off in order to so that the sound come through clearly. So let's turn the time over to you guys. Thank you.
All right. And do you have our slides?
Yeah, the slides up. Sorry.
Okay, sounds good. Well, our review that we have got to do this past semester was on Hibiscus tiliaceus, and this is kind of a jack of all trades in the medicinal and also the ethnobotanical uses.
Okay, your sound is kind of like cutting off. You
Is
probably
it cutting off?
have to turn it all the way up and stay closer to the.
Is that better?
Yeah, way better.
Okay. Okay. We'll stay closer. So our plant that we got to review this past semester was Hibiscus tiliaceus, and it is kind of a jack of all trades plant with its industrial, environmental, and also, most importantly, its ethnobotanical uses and medicinal uses. So we will have Spencer started off on the introduction slide.
Yeah, I'd like to move into the first slide here in our presentation, just to give a brief introduction and rundown on the Hibiscus tiliaceus. It is a flowering tree from the family Malvaceae. This is the same family of plants of which cotton and cocoa and okra and durian belong to, just to name a few that most people are probably familiar with. Hibiscus is the most numerous genus in this family of plants. So it's very common, very prevalent. Some of the more common names that people may be more familiar with include sea hibiscus, beach hibiscus, coastal cottonwood, and several others, but those are kind of the more commonly known ones. In Samoa and Tonga, it is called fau, and Hawaii, they refer to it as hau, and then purau in Tahiti, just to name a few of the native words for those things. Forgive me if I've messed up the pronunciation on those. I tried my best there. This plant has been known and used for its medicinal and other practical uses for hundreds, if not thousands of years, these cultures in Polynesia and the South Pacific. And more modernly, it's been well studied for its industrial and pharmaceutical potential and applications. And we'll kind of go into all those things today in our presentation and kind of give a good rundown of its traditional uses and then some of the more modern uses they're investigating for use in medicines and other things.
Yep. And if you go to the next slide of habitats, Hibiscus tiliaceus is native to the Old World, specific more in general like the Pacific Ocean, but also includes Southern Asia and parts of Africa and I believe parts of some South America, but on the Pacific side of South America. And the reason and the way that it's able to spread through all of these places, other than people introducing them to these new areas is that it's able to spread via seed drift dispersal, which means, you know, it has a seed and that seed can just float in the ocean until it finds somewhere habitable. And once it gets there, it's good to go. But it can also do it by cuttings or introduction by people. And for that reason, it is now found in other parts of the world, including Atlantic cities and countries, including Florida and the eastern coast of South America, because it was introduced by people, and you know, it's pretty looking. This plant, Hibiscus dioecious, is a very robust plant. It can live in coastal areas, estuaries, brackish water, saltwater rivers. For that reason, is often found with like mangrove forests and alongside mangrove species. It is, like I said, very robust and can live from sea level up to about 800 meters in elevation. And it just needs some fresh water. But since it is a mangrove-like species, it is adapted to salt water and has some adaptations like snorkel to help the air, I guess, and breathe. And this plant is not a threatened species, which is good because it can allow for better use by people in many ways, which I will talk about. So if you go to the next slide, which is environmental. So the inner bark of this tree has been used traditionally for like strainers of, I believe, kava was it, or a potential strainer. It has also been used as like clothes and skirts in various cultures, but the inner bark has also been used as a rope. This ability to be a rope and be very durable and strong is actually being investigated more by scientists because of the plastic pollutants that are in our ocean. So this is a good option to reduce the plastic pollutants made by synthetic ropes, such as fishing nets and ropes for boats and things. It is also used, the wood is good for high quality furniture and is desirable for that. But along with that, it's tangled roots and mangrove like forests that it makes are good for holding the soils in coastal areas. So it protects the coast from erosion, and you know, who doesn't love a good beach? And with that, there has been some research done investigating the effects of mangrove forests and the mangrove-like species, including Hibiscus dioecious, on tsunami damage reduction. So they have looked at various sites that have been hit by tsunamis and have had a lot of damage. They compared them they've compared sites that were protected by mangrove forests and coastal forests like these, and sites that were not, and they found that there was a greater reduction of damage and death caused by the tsunami when there is a forest protecting them from the wave. So yeah, very important. Those are just some of the environmental. Spencer will talk about the industrial piece, and then we'll continue to the medicinal pieces.
Yeah, so as we kind of move into the next slide here, just to name a few of its traditional non-medicinal uses. So the Hibiscus dioecious, it's a woody plant, and it's what has many cultures. To name a few of those, that include seacraft, firewood, wood carvings, furniture, as a cork or crack sealant, as floats on fishing nets, and for tool handles. And its plant fibers has also been used in the making of ropes, cordage, and things like that. And to kind of go along with that in a more modern sense, they've kind of investigated some of the properties of the high quality wood of the Hibiscus tiliaceus to identify what makes it so strong and to see if they can use that in other applications. And what they found is that when the fibers of this plant are used in conjunction with other things, it is a useful component in the manufacture of metallic nanoparticles and carbon nanotubes, which are kind of new technologies being developed for their great crush and tensile strength. And which makes sense when you think about the traditional usage of the wood of this plant. And they've also found that it's an effective part and reactant in green synthesis reactions when making metal nanocomposites, which is kind of known in the scientific world to be kind of a toxic process, which creates a lot of environmental toxicity and things like that. And they found that by using the extracts from the Hibiscus tiliaceus, they're able to do more of a green synthesis reaction where less pollutants are created and less harm is done to the people, doing the manufacture and also to the environment. And so those uses are being investigated, but there's a lot of potential. There are very exciting developments in green synthesis and the manufacture of other nanoparticles, which have a wide range of industrial applications and things that they're being investigated for potential use. And then as we move into the next slide here to kind of continue on that note, as we talk about some of these specific chemical compounds that are found in the extracts of Hibiscus tiliaceus. Just to name a few of those compounds and phytochemicals that are found in the plant, it includes triterpenes, phytosterols, phenols, lactones, flavonoids, fumarates, glycosides, and a variety of dicarboxylic acids. And all of those compounds have been found in their own way to be biologically active, pharmacologically active, and to have their own uses, whether that be anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, analgesic, just to name a few. But the uses and activities of these compounds found within the leaves, stem, and bark of this plant are really many, honestly. And it's really fascinating to kind of see just how much potential there is to use the extracts of this plant in medicines and other things. Just to name a few of the ways that they're able to determine these chemical compounds in these plants, they use phytochemical screenings, which involves adopting chemical reactions to identify specific functional groups in the compounds. And then they use a combination of gas chromatography and mass spectrometry in conjunction with nuclear magnetic resonance, or NMR, which allows scientists to determine, which phytochemical, which compounds are found within the extracts of this plant. And then they can identify those, isolate them, and apply them in medicinal and other uses and investigate their effectiveness in that way.
Yes. So if you go to the next slide, the medicinal uses, this tree has many different components, like Spencer said, and different parts of the tree are able to help with different things. So so in various cultures, this plant has been used for pain relieving, antibiotic, wound healing, chest congestion, and digestive health. In the leaves and stems, it has polyphenols and flavonoids which help with chest congestion. And then in the leaves extract, they have found wound healing and also a microbial activity, which is helpful because of wound healing. And then lastly, the leaves and flower base, it has saponins and tannins and secondary metabolites, which help with digestive health and help people stay regular and be healthy. And going to the next slide, Spencer will talk about digestive health.
Yeah, so just to kind of go into more detail about those things that Parker mentioned briefly a moment ago, specifically in the realm of digestive health, we've kind of hypothesized that using a mixture of the dried leaves and the dried flower petals for Hibiscus tiliaceus. Combining those things together could be a way to create potentially an effective digestive health supplement. And kind of the reason why we think this could be the case is due to the tannins and saponins, which are found in the dried leaves of the plant, and then secondary metabolites such as polyphenols and other antioxidant compounds found within the dried flower petals. Based on research that's been done on these things, it's reasonable to say that this could be a potential help with digestive health and in the stomach of human beings. Because specifically due to one study where researchers examined another plant of the hibiscus genus and found that when they applied the extract of this plant to a line of human gastric cancer cells, the cells entered a state of apoptosis or cell death quicker than they would have otherwise. And we believe that this activity is probably shared with Hibiscus tiliaceus, but more research probably need to be done to confirm that. But we find it reasonable to assume that would probably be the case. And this action is done by the extracts of this plant and its phytochemicals found within it by targeting specific metabolic or physiological pathways in the cells. And then in addition to that, just as more evidence for its digestive health benefits, one study done looked at the ability of the leaf mixture to enhance and increase protein metabolism and nitrogen retention when it's added to foods. And in one specific study where they analyze goats specifically, because as many of us are probably aware, most science is done on animals first, then on humans later, once they determine things are safe. They found that when a mixture of the crude leaf extract was added to the protein food of the goats, that the presence of the Hibiscus tiliaceus leaf substance increased protein metabolism and nitrogen retention, suggesting potentially some digestive benefits there as well.
And continuing on to talk about the leaves and the stems, which contain polyphenols and flavonoids. These are antioxidants, which are very helpful. And I'm not sure if you or your listeners are aware of what antioxidants are, but antioxidants help to stop or reduce damage caused by free radicals, which are basically electrons that are just in the body. So the antioxidants will grab those electrons and make it so those electrons can do more damage. And for this reason, the antioxidants help to reduce the bronchitis-like symptoms and coughing symptoms that have been around for centuries and for a long time. But not only that, the stem and leaves extract, which have been found and tested, I believe it was on mice, but I will have to double check on that. They have found that it has an anti-inflammatory effect. So it can help with wounds and stuff, but it can also help with our chest congestion, such as with asthma. It does this by interacting with capillaries of swollen tissues to reduce the swelling and make it so you can heal faster, which is very important because this is another form of asthma treatment and is helpful for anyone that has asthma. Continuing on, Spencer will talk about the digestive health.
Not the digestive health, but going on to the next category here, we wanted to focus on the pain relieving, antimicrobial, and wound healing activities of the compounds found within Hibiscus tiliaceus. Specifically, those compounds are the tannins, which have been shown in studies to have wound healing activity in the body at a cellular level. And then the phenols, anthocyanins, and saponins, which have been shown to have strong antibacterial activity in regards to bacterial cells. And then the flavonoids and terpenoids, which have been shown in other studies to have strong analgesic or that's pain relieving activity as well. Specifically, the studies that we wanted to focus on here showed that Hibiscus tiliaceus is a very effective antibacterial agent when used against biofilms. What biofilms are, they are colonies of many groups of bacteria that kind of unite together to become stronger than they would be individually. And it's often a source of intense bacterial infection, specifically in places like hospitals and other medical clinics where bacterial infections are common. And so, the treatment of these biofilms are a subject of pretty intense scientific research. And they found that the Hibiscus tiliaceus extract, specifically the phenols and the phenolics, have a strong ability to inhibit cell membrane formation in bacterial cells within biofilms. And studies have shown that it's very effective in that way. And in conjunction with that, the wound healing ability of the tannins found in the Hibiscus tiliaceus extract has been extremely effective in increasing the rate of wound healing, with one study showing that wound retraction, epithelialization, and greater tensile strength was gained by a healing wound when an extract of the Hibiscus tiliaceus plant was applied to the wound before it was completely healed. And then lastly, in regards to the flavonoids and terpenoids and their analgesic effect, one study showed that when a painful stimuli was applied to mice, in one study, that when they were treated with Hibiscus tiliaceus extract, that the amount of time that they reacted to it, specifically their writhing time, was reduced. And so we've kind of hypothesized here that combining all these things together into some sort of antibacterial cream or ointment could be a very effective way to firstly clean the wound, keep it free of bacteria and biofilms, things like that, and to increase the rate at which the wound heals, which consequently will also decrease the chance of bacterial infection as the wound heals more quickly. And then also just relieving pain, because usually when there's a wound, there's pain associated with that as well. Looking at all these effects that are found in the phytochemicals identified from Hibiscus tiliaceus, it's just another strong example of how biologically active this plant really is, and for the many medicinal uses which it potentially has.
And in conclusion, like he said, we have thought about the potential for an ointment cream. And we, due to the antioxidant activity and the anti-inflammatory and digestive health that are associated with the leaves and stems and flower base, we also thought maybe an herbal tea of some sort would be a good option to just help stay healthy and fit. So yeah, in conclusion, Hibiscus tiliaceus, like we showed, is kind of a jack of all trades plant with its many industrial uses, its medicinal uses that we've shown here, and it has applications not yet fully researched. And more research should be done on this plant to find more natural and organic compounds and medicine. So yeah, are there any questions?
Oh, did you guys mention something about the tea that's made from the flowers and the leaves?
Yeah, that was another option that we're looking at into. Besides the cream, I forgot to mention it during the antioxidant part and the coffee congestion, chest condition compounds. So that was my mind. But we thought that would be another viable option for medicine, just to stay healthy and make it so you have a good life, I guess. So, yeah.
Okay. The other question was from Messenger, and this person was saying, did they mention anything about making a rope, since you guys talk about the industrial use of this bark and the inner bark? Thank you.
Yeah, so traditionally it has been used as a rope making material because it is a very strong material. The plant fibers from it are very strong. And we kind of touched briefly on the research that's been done to try to identify how it can be used, and not specifically rope making today, but more in like nanoparticles and kind of those scientifically synthesized composite materials to create like super strong materials in conjunction with carbon and other chemicals and things like that. So I think that's kind of interesting as it's been used traditionally for rope making. They are kind of looking into how that great tensile strength and resistance to stress that these plant fibers have and trying to find a way that they can use it in industrial applications today. But how specifically they're doing that hasn't been really well fleshed out yet or researched, but I'm confident that in the coming years it will be more so.
Okay, thank you. We have make ropes in the islands from it, and if you see that the Haitian ladies that do the dances, a lot of those things that they wear are made from the inner part, and sometimes they're dyed with different colors. Okay, I definitely thank those that send in the questions. I definitely agree with you too about the check of all trade. And this is a very useful plan for our ancestors. And perhaps this is the first time a lot of those who are listening in actually know that there are a lot more chemistry for this plant that we call in Tonga fowl. Okay, very useful. We thank you. We appreciate you. And we'll see you guys around. Which one of you is graduating anyway?
That's me, Spencer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you, Spencer. And that is awesome. And we got to see the hard work that you two have put together on this very important plan. So, all right.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the semester too, and thanks for everyone that was listening.
Yeah, thank you. So, good night.
Good night. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
So this is very important plan, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of us probably know foul by a few things. The ropes that we made, perhaps used for houses. Okay, I know I use them for houses. I built a little hut in New Orleans, or known as the Tin Can Island. Okay, so you make rope. Building houses, and also the tea. This is the first time when we came here working for the industry, know that there is a tea made out of these leaves and flowers. So there are a lot of foul plants in Polynesia, and we're not using that for medicinal tea. Okay. And by the way, in Jamaica, those things are very popular, and they're getting here into the United States by different companies, and they're going worldwide, coming from one world to the other worlds. Okay, I hope that you have a deep appreciation for the knowledge that have been shared, for what our ancestors have done, and things that they have used for thousands of years. Okay, let's find one commercial here and then a song, then we'll.
Spring is here and summer is just around the corner. So be social, be boosted. CDC recommends boosters for everyone who's vaccinated in age 12 or older. A booster adds an extra layer of confidence to your social life. Over time, vaccines may become less effective at preventing COVID. Boosters reduce your chances of getting COVID and can double your protection against being hospitalized if you do get it. Need more information? Talk to a health worker. Paid by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I'll turn the time over to them, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. I'll turn the time over to them, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so we're going to be talking about the Tamanu. So we'll just introduce ourselves first. So my name is Ashra. I am an ethnobotany student at Utah Valley University.
And my name is Kylie, and I'm a biotechnology student at Utah Valley University. Let me share my screen here.
Go ahead. Yeah, your screen is up.
Perfect. Beautiful. Okay, we chose to study Calophyllum inophyllum due to its incredible medicinal properties. Our intentions is to educate the community about the amazing applications and the potential Tamanu holds.
Yeah, so if you can go to the next slide, we'll go on to introduction.
Go ahead.
We will address the traditional uses of Tamanu as a sacred symbol, medicinal applications, timber, and we will discuss the bioactivity that has exciting future medicinal applications. We hope that you will be able to learn something new and to recognize Tamanu tree that is found in 38 countries, stretching from East Africa to Southeast Asia and the South Pacific. And if we could go to the next slide, Ashra will give us some identification and characteristics of Tamanu.
Yeah, so on the next slide, it'll kind of show identification just very briefly. So Cainophylum inophyllum, also known as Tamanu or beauty leaf, Alexandrian, laurel, and mastwood. So we'll just refer to it as Tamanu. That's just how we've seen it in all of our studies. So Tamanu is a low branching tree with a brown-black bark, and then the inner wood is red. And this tree can reach up to 20 meters in height. And the leaves themselves are oval shaped with rounded tips and are distinguished by their glossy appearance. And then for flowers, you can expect flowers to bloom during July, August, and then again in October, November. And it also bears fruit around May and also November as well. And then we'll go on to the next slide and talk a little more about the plant itself.
So in the next slide, we are going to go over the geography and habitat of Tamanu. It is native in the tropical and subtropical areas, such as the South Pacific Islands, Southeast Asia, Australia, and Eastern Africa. And it has many traditional uses that are different across each country. And in the next slides, we'll go over some of those traditional uses. There are a ton of amazing traditional uses. So in the next slide, we have medicine, which Ashra will go over.
Yeah, so for traditional uses as a source of medicine, so you can use the Tamanu nut oil, which help eliminate scars, and then the Tamanu leaf, which help with wound healing, and also like a medicinal eye wash. In Polynesia, as it happens, people are said to call the Tamanu beauty leaf, reflecting the oil that the oil has long been used to soothe damaged skin, along with healing wounds and even eliminating scars. And this is just wherever the tree has grown naturally or been cultivated. And then on to the next slide, we'll talk about some more traditional uses as well from this plant, not just medicinally.
So on the right, we have the Tamanu nuts, and it has not been used as a so it has been made into bowls. The nut has been tasted, but it does have some toxicity to it. It is very bitter to the taste, but the toxicity does not leak into the food when it is eaten in the bowl. And in the next slide, we have some other traditional uses that tamanu has been used for, and Asha will discuss some of those.
Yeah, so for some other traditional uses that we have that I was able to find out, this is actually pretty cool. So tamanu has been used as a mosquito repellent for both humans and animals. So they'll just take the oil and they'll apply it to their skin, and then onto their animals, say like their livestock or whatever, they'll put the oil on those as well, just to prevent the mosquitoes, because mosquitoes can have like all kinds of diseases, you know. And then the tamanu also has been used for sacred purposes as well. It's actually been planted in sacred areas. It's been carved into tikis and totems that represent the idols worshipped in the region. And then you can always find stories about the meanings behind these idols and stuff that would be really fun. But yeah, that was just really cool, like interesting facts that I guess you could say that we've learned about it. And on to the next page, next slide, we'll talk about some other benefits that we've been able to find, other things that we were finding with this tamanu oil.
Skincare is one of the most exciting ones I have found for tamanu. It is also very popular in the skincare market. This is because tamanu oil has a bunch of potential properties for the skin. It is able to purify the skin from free radicals, which this is due to the antioxidants that are in the tamanu oil. It is also great for anti-aging activity. It is also great in wound healing activity. And this would create a beneficial product because it would be able to reduce acne, take care of any scarring, any dark circles or dark marks, and also wrinkles. And in the next slide, Ashra will address the wound healing properties and chemicals that are found in tamanu oil.
Yeah, and the wound healing properties are actually pretty fascinating. So the tamanu has been widely used in traditional medicine to treat skin ailments, as it is diverse in bioactive compounds. The major compound in there is chlorophyllolide, extracted from this plant, and it's responsible for the observed enhanced wound healing effects to make wound healing even better. And the chlorophyllolide has exhibited positive effects without triggering any adverse inflammatory effects when tested on mice. And then the oil from the seeds was recommended to cure a variety of skin conditions, actually, including burns, eczema, acne, like she mentioned, psoriasis, chilblains, skin cracks, dry skin, hemorrhoids, and the list can go on. I thought that was really cool. And then on the next slide, we'll start addressing some of these uses, like more, how do you want to say, like specifically. So
anti-inflammatory has been traditionally used for tamanu, so it's reduced and inflammation in eczema, psoriasis. It's also been used to treat burns, rheumatic diseases such as arthritis. And when the seed oil was tested in the lab, the compound chlorophyllolide from tamanu reduced histamine inflammation in the mice. And in the next slide, we have antiviral properties. Tamanu is loaded with a bunch of bioactive compounds that are very beneficial.
Yeah, so for the antiviral properties, so it contains many compounds that have displayed the antiviral activity when tested on mammal cell culture. So in a phylum A, C, and D exhibited cancer chemopreventive activity against Epstein-Barr virus, also known as the human herpes virus 4. The tamanu contains a few exciting compounds that have shown in experiments to have some inhibition of the human virus, the immune deficiency virus, which is the HIV, which can cause AIDS. And the phylum also had some identified things in here that are inhibitors of the HIV-1 RT, and then also HIV-1 reverse transcriptase, which is an enzyme that is essential for the replication of HIV-1 genome. And on the next slide, I'll also talk about the antimicrobial activities as well. So on the next slide, the tamanu has two main bioactive compounds, chlorophylloric acid and lactone, that are responsible for the plant's antibiotic properties. In a study performed by Smarty and their team, showed that the seed extract was effective in inhibiting growth of E. coli and also S. aureus cultures as well. And then we'll move on to the next slide and talk about some other properties as well.
So in the next slide, we address the antifungal properties, which when studied, the biggest compounds were inophilum C and E that exhibited antifungal properties. The table that you see on the right is going to reflect the antifungal activity of inophilum C and E derived from calophyllum inophilum leaf extracts. And then it will show the corresponding fungus. So the MIC values that are shown here indicate the lowest concentration of the chemical that can prevent visible growth of the bacteria. And in this table, inophilum C and E have antifungal activity against the fungus 1, 2, 3, and 7. So it has shown in lab really great properties of treating fungus and killing it. And in the next slide, we'll go over some of the antioxidant activities, which is great for the skincare. And with that, tamanu nut oil has the bioactive compounds chlorophylloric acid and isophilic acid and triterpene. These both exhibit great antioxidant properties, which is great for fighting against damage from free radicals, as when an oxygen atom releases a free radical, the antioxidant will donate its electrons to neutralize the unstable molecules. And in the next slide, we have anti-diabetic properties that Ashra will tell us more about.
Yeah, so for the anti-diabetic properties, so there was a study, it was really cool, a study done with rats, and the study looked at the effects on the physical appearance. So they tracked the feeding intake, the weight gain, and the plasma and tissue cholesterol in the rats themselves. And they did a weekly monitoring of these rats, and they saw a steady weight gain, but the appearance was good. There was not any mortality rate amongst the tested rats, which is also a positive sign. There was a noticeable change in the plasma cholesterol level with considerable amounts of unsaturated fatty acids. This means that the consumption of the oil will add to the increased risk of cardiovascular diseases. The results in the study show that because the oil contains unsaturated fatty acids, there's a possibility it can be used to lower plasma cholesterol. And then we'll just go into the next slide and then just rehearse kind of what we were going over.
And I just want to reiterate that the tamanu has been considered as a toxic plant. So with further consumption, it would need to be further research to see if we can pull some chemicals out and reduce the toxicity. But since we fed you a lot of information about tamanu, I just wanted to briefly wrap up what we've gone over and kind of the benefits of it. So we went over wound healing. It is great with wound healing and also treating ulcers. It can reduce scar tissue and it helps promote collagen. For future studies, we will need to explore internal applications. Currently, it is not recommended to consume, but hopefully with more research, drug development can come from this. And in the next slide, we'll talk about another property of Tamanu that is being explored, and that is biofuel.
Yeah, so this illustration here that you can see, it was pulled from the Center for the International Forest Research. The oil from the nut, which has been reported, well, it's reportedly been burned in lamps for many generations across Southern Asia. And it has significant potential to become an important source of biofuel. Researchers in Indonesia have determined that a single hectare of tamano trees can yield up to 10 tons per hectare of crude nut oil every year, and that there are about 3.5 million hectares of degraded land across the country suitable for the species. And then we'll just go on to the next slide and then talk about some potentials for tamano.
So the properties of tamanu, as we've discussed, can be developed into many products. Currently, there's a ton of products in the cosmetics market, and the oil has been used in many creams, lotions, anti-aging creams, and massage oils. There's some exciting potential, as Asher discussed, for biofuel as a more sustainable option to fossil fuels, and the leaf and oil extracts could have some potential drug development. But like I said before, it would require further safety evaluation to be considered for internal administrations. And in the next slide, we want to go over some products that we explored and thought about creating.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've kind of consulted over saying, oh, this would be really cool to do is like a tropical healing spray, because this has a lot of like wound healing properties. It's just like would be so convenient if this was like in a spray, so you can just spray it over a wound without having to like put oil on your hand or anything like that. And it's just easy application for that. And like you can put that in your like medicine cabinet or your first aid kit or something like that, and it's just super convenient even for travel, honestly, because it's just a spray. You don't have to make a mess or anything like that. You don't even have to worry about that. And then on the next slide, we actually had other ideas as well that we wanted to point out for fun, I guess you could say.
And some further product potential that you can also make at home real easily is like a healing salve or even a moisturizer with tamanu oil, as it has a lot of antibacterial properties, antifungal. There are some UV protection in it that's not as well studied, but it is being further looked into, and it is a great moisturizer and protecting the skin barrier. And in the next slide, we'll just want to wrap up and conclude some of our findings.
Yeah, so like the basic conclusion of this is that tamanu is such an important plant and is rich in medicinal bioactive compounds. The conservation of this plant is really important because each part of this tamanu can be utilized, and more clinical studies are necessary to predict the future treatment proposals to cure a variety of diseases, even ones that we haven't mentioned yet. And it's critical that the community is aware of the potential uses of this plant as well. And then, and we just want to thank you for listening to us. And if you have any questions about this, we're happy to answer. Is there anything you wanted to add or no?
No, I think this has been an amazing study, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to share this information with you, and we welcome any questions you have for us.
And we have had the opportunity to work with the oil itself and just try it out, and it's been great. So if you have any questions.
Awesome. Here there are actually 3 questions. So the first question, it seems like this guy is into the tea thing. Okay. Did they have any country that tamanu has been known to grow have anything with tea from the leaves or the barks?
That is a great question because when we were studying the toxicity of it, it was mainly they're addressing like the oil itself, saying that you can eat it, but like it's going to prohibit you from gaining nutrients. But that's just from the oil. As for the leaves and the bark, it hasn't been recorded that people have eaten that part. Only one person said that they've had the nut before and there was a bitter taste to it. And it's just not really like I palatable, I guess you could say. So I I think there's a lot more research that needs to be done. I have not seen the tea. And through all of our research, nothing has been pulled up about that becoming a tea.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I guess this individual and I probably among others really need this kind of thing, information. Were there any information from any in Polynesia or other countries that use the manu oil for hair growth?
That is a great question. In our study in the articles, I did not come across a hair
I do
oil.
have an idea though. So if you remember previous or that we've mentioned before, anti-inflammatory, some of these properties, I think it would work great for the scalp. Massaging it in the scalp essentially is great for the skin, the collagen, and just if you like scratch your scalp, well, and like leave marks or whatever, then you could just put that like right in there to heal it up, and just prevent yourself from that scarring as well, and I think that will help promote it because it's anti-inflammatory, micro like fungal and stuff. So if you have anything in the hair, like it could possibly be used as a shampoo because of those properties.
Yeah. We could infer from what we know, it could be good to treat like dandruff or any scalp inflammation or irritation, but we have not come across it for hair growth in particular.
For me personally, I would probably try it out, just a few drops here and there and just like massage it in the scalp, and that would be it, and just see how it goes, because there's nothing saying that it's going to like cause an adverse reaction to the skin, as we even noticed that it in some of these studies saying that it does not cause these things, like even on the mice that were tested.
That's good to know. And the person really thanked you too for doing it. So he said that he has a lot and he's doing it right now. He'll let me know. He's the guinea pig.
We love
So the one last question is for me, that what was the feeling when you two ladies use the tamanu oil on your skin?
Well, I wish I had brought it with me, but I have a whole thing of tomato oil, and we actually combined it with like manuka oil as well, and then we also add some coconut just to like dilute it some, so we'd have more. And when we did use it, it was very pleasant smelling, and like we didn't have anything like wounds or anything that like add it on, but like it's moisturizing and like it absorbs into the skin, which your skin is so important to you. It's such a big like organ of your body, and so taking care of it, so it was like a lotion almost, but like I felt like my skin benefited more than just a regular cheap lotion. So,
and I could add, I actually have eczema, and it did help soothe it a little bit. But I think with tinkering with the concentration, it could be more beneficial.
Okay, that sounds great. I'd like to thank you too for being part of the class and for your due diligence in studying this plan and putting together the information scientifically in a review paper and also present it. And I think that a lot of people will probably get some ideas on the potential products. Okay, I think the guy with the hair thing I will have to contact him and see. Follow up with him.
Keep us updated. I want to know.
Okay. Well, are you two, one of you graduating?
I am graduating this semester, yes. It is so exciting.
Oh, congratulations to you, Kylie.
Thank you.
And don't forget UVU when you guys make big time
We won't forget.
Donate.
But we'd like to thank you and good night.
Thank you so much. See ya.
Okay, bye-bye. It's so good to have, I think that is a very, that question is great to actually know if the oil from the fetao plants or the tamanu seed oil actually contribute to hair growth. Okay, I think that is a good idea to find out if it does, and I will keep you updated. I'll do more studies on find out about the phytochemicals that have been identified by Kylie and Asher to see if there are any of them have any effects on the anti-aging or the hair growth. That will be interesting to know. Okay, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you will be interested in that. So let me. We have those guys. Let me welcome the next group. If you guys will turn your video on and also your mic. Are both of you on the same spot or different areas? Oh, okay. There you go.
We're in the
Shelby.
same spot, but we're group 8. I don't know if you want us to go now or not, but
Okay.
we are group 8.
Okay, I haven't seen. Yeah, let's go if you guys are ready. Why not? So here's the next group. I like to let them introduce themselves. Okay, just like the others. And this is one of the medicinal plants that I look forward to because I know a lot of you have used the leaves and the bark, and a lot of you don't like the bark. But look forward to learn more from these two, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and then while I load up their PowerPoint and get them ready. Thank you.
Okay. All right. My name is Henry Ashton. I am going to UVU like everybody else, and I am a biology major, and I'm going into the medical field. And I am a third year here, so I have another year left.
And then I'm Shelby Hickman. I'm also a biology major. I'm also in my third year, and I also go to UVU. So, yeah.
Awesome. So I'll let you two take over your slides. There will be a little lacking in the if you're watching through the Facebook, but you guys are ready.
Yeah, we're ready. We're good to go. The slides are up and everything?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we'll be talking about Terminalia catapa, and we'll go from there to the next slide and talk about the common names and stuff like that.
Okay, so the common names for Terminalia catapa are most commonly known is the tropical almond, but it is also known as country almond, Malabar almond, sea almond, India almond, beach almond, and false kamani.
So basically an almond. In Hawaii, it's known as the false kamani. Apparently, there's another tree called the kamani who looks exactly like the false kamani or the Terminalia catapa, which was brought in when white settlers started going outside and traveling and stuff like that. And to distinguish it from the kamani, they just called it the false kamani, which I thought was pretty interesting. So it's a very, very common plant. If we go to the description of the plant, the tree grows to about 35 meters tall. It's a pretty tall tree. The fruit of it is edible. And like the common names, it's often compared to an almond. The taste, the texture, everything is very similar to an almond. The seeds of the plant are also edible, but are extremely difficult to extract, and they don't have a lot of benefit to eat. So the fruit is the main, like if you're trying to eat it, it has a lot of health substance that we'll also get into. The tree itself, the leaves are they're long, they're broad, they're leathery, they're glossy, they're green. and they're just they provide a lot of shade. They're usually found at like the habitat and classification, the next slide.
So they're usually found in coastal thickets, beaches, rocky shores, sandy dunes, parks, gardens, mangrove swamps. So they're pretty much found just coastal areas. And then the annual rainfall that they need is 1,000 to 3,500 millimeters. And then they require a significant amount of sunshine. So these trees are going to be commonly found in like the equator, like coastal regions, just where they're going to get a lot of rainfall and a lot of water and a lot of sunshine. So.
Yeah, and they originated in Southeast Asia and kind of spread from there. Mm-hmm. But any coastal region, you're extremely likely to find the Terminale catapa or the Indian almond. Just because it's so common, it's easy to grow, it grows very well. So it's a very common plant, and that's why a lot of people who are from these islands and Southeast Asia and stuff like that, they have a knowledge of it already. And so hopefully our goal is to expound on that knowledge and to be able to help everyone understand why it's such a beneficial plant to have around. So in traditional uses, the stem or the bark of the tree has been used as an anti-inflammatory for a whole bunch of different diseases. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but it's also used for wound healing, dysentery, gonorrhea, scabies, skin issues, asthma, and diarrhea. So the bark itself has so many beneficial uses. A lot of times people will boil it in like a type of stew, or they'll just simply chew on it as they're going throughout the day. It's been coined throughout history as with the nickname the king of medicine, which just shows you how beneficial it is traditionally and in history about what people have used this plant for. If it's called the king of medicine, there's so many benefits that is involved with it. If we're thinking about the leaves now, the leaves are boiled and often used as a tea ingredient, and it helps with hepatitis and hepatoma, gastritis, and urinary infections. And so with the bark and the leaves themselves, it like helps with all of these common infections and illnesses that we suffer just through a day-to-day experience. And every single part of this plant can be used. So the sap and the oil from the fruit and the seeds are used to treat leprosy. And it can also be used as a mild laxative. And the fluid of the bark has been used traditionally to treat diabetes. And that's typically for type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is a little bit of a different story. The situation there is different. So the bark has been used to treat type 2 diabetes. And so that's pretty much the traditional uses that we're going to talk about. The toxicity prevention, the plant has a lot of ability to prevent toxicity. It has antimicrobial potential, such as antifungal and antibiotics, and we will go in depth with that a little bit later. It has anti-hepatotoxic activity, which is the ability to prevent damage to the liver. So this is used for people that suffer different kinds of liver diseases, people who drink and have that toxicity going into their liver. This plant can help prevent that a little bit by preventing the damage to the liver itself.
Okay, and then as far as the nutritional value, it's a really great source for zinc, iron, magnesium, calcium, amino acids, protein. This is just like for like all essential things. If you're wanting to have a healthy body, we need all of these things for our body to stay in like homeostasis, to run at its prime. All these like vitamins and amino acids and protein are so important for building muscle and just staying healthy. And then, so as far as like the food uses go, there was this really interesting study where they were looking at the seeds of the almond tree, and they found that it has a really high fat concentration, which like when you hear that at first, you're like, oh no, like fat, we don't want that. But this fat was like really healthy. And so they were looking and they're like, using healthy fats as a cooking oil would be really beneficial. And so with this study, they were comparing it and they found it was really like it tasted very similar to other almond oils that are on the market. So one's from different almond trees. But what they found was like this almond oil was so much healthier than the other ones. And it had a pretty good shelf life. Had good consistency. They found that it was like very beneficial. So it was a really good alternative to traditional oils that were used for cooking that didn't have as like maybe those healthy fats in them. And yeah, so that's just like one of the food applications that can be used. It was also because of how much protein was within the nut, similar to like peanut butter, how peanut butter can be used for protein powders because it has like high protein and it's good protein in it. We were thinking this almond could be used as like a protein supplement and like that kind of dietary supplement. So it has a lot of potential for different like commercialized food products. Yeah.
So moving on to the antibacterial activity, the specific part of the antibacterial is found mostly within the edible portions of the plant due to the health benefits that were mentioned earlier. And tests have been done with assays and stuff like that. It has found that the fruit or the almond seed has been shown to have resistance towards gram-positive bacteria, which, for example, is like staph infections or strep throat or even pneumonia. So these really big, serious diseases or illnesses that we can catch. It has been shown that the fruit portion of the Terminalia catapa can have some resistance or some benefit towards us to resisting these types of infections. So just the fruit itself has so many benefits. Going to the antioxidant activity. So oxidant in the body is bad because it allows free radicals to enter the body. And free radicals damage a whole lot of stuff. They increase mutations happening. They cause cancer and stuff like that. So it's not a good thing to have in your body. And so having an antioxidant is really, really good. It also helps with the aging process. We all want to look younger, prevent those wrinkles from happening. So antioxidants help with that. It helps us age more healthy and beneficial towards us. The fruit itself has something called hydrolysable tannins within the leaf, which the name isn't important, but what it does is it helps prevent HIV replication, and more importantly, it helps with skin cancer. So melanoma cancer cell inhibition, which for where this plant grows in like the equator type area, coastal regions, we all know that the sun and the heat is a huge issue. So the fact that this plant can help prevent that skin cancer from happening is huge and super beneficial, and one of the big ways that it's used traditionally. And just a warning, it's not a cure-all. You don't want huge, high levels of antioxidants inside your body. So it's not like you want to eat a bunch of this nonstop. It's not that. Having a high amount of any kind of food isn't good for you. And if the more you eat of antioxidants, it can be related to health risks. But everything taken in an adequate portion, it's super beneficial. Moving on to anti-inflammatory portion of the plant. Research has been done that shows that the bark of the almond tree has anti-inflammatory properties. And traditionally, the bark has been chewed on or made into a tea to access these anti-inflammatory properties. And incorporating anti-inflammatory foods into a person's diet has been shown to help ease the symptoms of many diseases such as arthritis. So a lot of these autoimmune diseases where your immune system flares up and it just makes you feel kind of sick and stuff like that. This plant kind of has it all: antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, health benefits, can help treat cancer and stuff like that. There's just so many benefits And anti-inflammatory is just another one of those numerous benefits that it brings.
Okay, and then anti-diabetic. So this one is very interesting, and this is the one where it's going to help with your type 2 diabetes. So diabetes is a result of the body's inability to control the blood sugar levels. So if these levels get too high or too low, they can cause a bunch of serious problems. The symptoms for high blood sugar and the symptoms for low blood sugar are drastically different. But either way, you don't want to be in that high or low range or extremities, because it's just going to be really hard on your body and cause a lot of issues, especially with your cardiovascular systems, your heart, your blood vessels, and your digestive system. So overall, like, it's not good. And it can be inherited, so in genetics, so you can get it from your parents, or you have it, the type 1, you can pass it down to your kids. But it also can be developed from a person's lifestyle. So this is lifestyles that are more sedentary. So like the risk factors for that is being over the age of 45, being overweight, having a lack of exercise, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. So mostly it's the risk factors are from things that are kind of controllable. This is for type 2 diabetes. But they're things like lifestyle, exercise, just like your diet, what you're eating and stuff. So the benefits of the almond tree is that, like, there was some research that was done on it, and it showed to help rats that had been given diabetes and stuff. And these rats, it was shown after doing like treatment where they had some extract of the almond plant, they were actually showing to, like, their pancreas was able to produce the things that can help control the blood sugar. So they were able to regenerate that ability to control their blood sugar, which was really, really great. And that is amazing. And so, like, the current medicine for diabetes is very, very expensive. And the thing is with it is it's a necessary thing for these people that have it. They can't go without it. It can cause some really serious health problems if they miss a dose, if they need it, they have to have it. And so the prices for it get really high. So they have to pay all this money for it. And it's just, they're very dependent on it. So finding alternative medicines that can help them use that to, like, save money is so good. And 412 million people have this disease. So it's all across the world. Every country has people with this. So it's a really big health problem that trying to find alternatives to help, like, fix it is really important.
Absolutely. So moving on to the future potential uses, we've gone over a little bit throughout our presentation, one of which is the diabetic potential of the supplement. There's others. Because of all the amazing properties that are within this, there's so many different future potential uses. It's kind of hard to narrow it down to talk about it. There's dietary supplements such as the protein. Cosmetically, there's lotions and face creams that can be used with this because of the anti-inflammatory and antioxidants that are involved with it. The medicinal tea, because of the bark and the leaves and all of those, the ability for it to treat all those different illnesses, can be used as an essential oil, digestive aids, and so much more. There's current research being done on its benefit on food crops, and more specifically the stored grains of food crops, and the ability that this plant has to prevent bacteria from getting into our stored crops such as wheat and corn. And there's specific bacteria that this plant specifically can prevent and to make sure that our crops can stay alive. So there's a lot of different uses. It can be cosmetic, it can be farming, it can be dietary. It's almost limitless what this plant can do. And the fact that it can be found almost anywhere in the world that has like coastal regions on the equator really helps the benefit of being able to do further research and stuff like that on it. So just to conclude, this plant, as we've mentioned multiple times, is the king of medicine. It can almost help with any type of situation that we can think of in a very general sense. It can just day-to-day lives, those common colds that we get, those inflammatory infections, arthritis, just the way we have our lifestyle, including this plant into our life as an edible source or as a medicinal source there's no harm from including this into our lifestyle. And that is the end of our presentation, and we'd like to turn the time to any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Shelby and Henry. Appreciate your time that you have taken to put together not just your paper, but also convert a lot of those information in order to present in the time constraints that we have. You did? Okay. It's always asking for the tea. I pay attention to that part. You have mentioned the tea from the leaves. Did you mention any tea from the bark?
We have mentioned tea from the bark. The bark is a little bit more difficult because it's harder to extract the ingredients from the bark, from the leaf. Because the leaf, you can just like kind of like, if you think of like a herbal tea, you can just kind of tear it up and let it seep. Where the bark is a little bit harder because of the outside hard texture to get into the real beneficial use. And that's why a lot of people chew on it. But you can boil the bark, and traditionally that's what a lot of people did, just to boil it and have like this kind of soup tea concoction. And it's also beneficial, but it's harder to get that benefit out of it in a tea extract.
Okay, so that satisfied that question. Okay, I think that a lot of people are into tea lately.
Yeah.
Tea is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's great to know. And the nuts. So you did say there are oil made from the nuts, aren't they? Did
Yes,
somebody?
there is oil.
Okay.
And there was a slide earlier talking about the oil that comes from the kernel.
Yeah.
The sap and the oil from the kernels, and they were used a long time ago to treat leprosy, and they're also used today as a mild laxative, and that's just from the oil that can be secreted naturally. That's not extract oil or anything like that. That's oil that comes from the actual tree. So the benefits that come from extracting oil from like the leaves and the bark and other things, it can be increased even more. But the oil itself from the tree is being used currently as like a laxative of sorts.
So, and this herb does not produce a lot of smoke. Okay.
Not from my understanding.
Yeah.
But tastes like, so I've never, I've eaten the seed so many times for so long, but I never thought of the oil. And I'm pretty sure there are companies that produce the oil. The interesting thing that also one of the questions you mentioned about the leprosy, as you know, leprosy did come to the South Pacific, and particularly in Molokai, one of the islands in Hawaii. There is a YouTube movie of Father Damien or Saint Damien. And he was instrumental on keeping a lot of those that suffer from leprosy in Kalaupapa, one of the villages in there. The interesting thing to me that those trees are loaded in Hawaii, and why we didn't use these, because we did not know. But you guys have put together, done a great job on the ethnobotanical research and also the phyto compounds that are active on a lot of things that I'm pretty sure that a lot of you Pacific Islanders who are listening in or watching, this is probably an eye-opener for you, okay? And I hope it does. But thank you. Really appreciate you, Henry and Shelby. Good work. Is there one of you graduating or... No,
we both have a year left, so we still have a little bit.
Oh, awesome. So we get to see you on campus then at some time, at some point.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, thank you, and good night.
All right, thank you, Dr. Palu.
Thank you. I hope that I do not provoke any negative emotions on the leprosy, but it is true. the research that have been done on this plant concerning leprosy is amazing. It's the same with the noni. Okay, do you know that noni, what we call in Tonga VTF, is a disease of the lymphatic system, and a lot of fungus and bacteria, they live in there, therefore they block it up, and that's why you see the foot of whoever suffering from what they call elephantitis, or in Tonga we call VTF, started to expand. Noni has been shown to actually cure those kind of things. Okay, we'll get to that later. Anyway, I hope that is beneficial to you as you have seen them. And I would like to bring in the next group. And let me, okay, so we have Sam and Lark. Will you two get ready? And let me play a song so that it'll be helpful to kind of relax a little bit here, okay? Okay.
Now put your hands up.
Thank you. We'd like to thank our viewers and those who shared our program. This is a special presentation by the students of the botany class from Utah Valley University Department of Biology. Once again, we thank Dr. Stouffer, the chairman of the department, for the support. And we also acknowledge and thank Shuntolo Magahiri, the general manager of the platform Pacifica, and also the regular Wake Taliwhalau Global Media Network for this opportunity to make this presentation available to Pacific Islanders in English language. So the students would like to present what they have found for this semester long about medicinal plants from the Pacific. And here is one of the groups, and I'll let them introduce themselves, okay? And after that, then we'll have them started.
So I'm Lark Earl. I'm a botany major at UVU, and I'm a senior.
My name is Sam Collister. I'm a biology major at Utah Valley University, and I'm also a senior. I graduate this spring. So.
Awesome, Sam. You guys go ahead. Your presentation is up.
You know, it's 2022. You'd think we realize how to unmute our mics. So this is Capsicum annuum, the sweet and spicy peppers. And so first, and next slide, please.
Okay, you guys go ahead. There's a little lacking on Facebook, I think.
Okay. So first, we want to describe the plant to you so you know what we're talking about. So Capsicum annuum is a perennial in the tropics, annual in cooler climates. It might be woody, it might not be. It tends to also grow as a weed in the tropics. The leaves are simple, alternate, ovate. Margins are entire. The flowers are terminal, white to cream colored, sometimes purple with a superior ovary. Fruit is erect, a hollow berry of various colors from green to red, sometimes purple, sometimes spicy, but sometimes not. And the next slide, please.
Okay, so I don't know if there's a lag. Okay, there we go. I'm just making sure that the Facebook is caught up. So Capsicum annuum is a member of the Solanaceae family, which includes eggplants, tobacco, tomatoes, potatoes. It is more commonly known as the chili pepper, sweet pepper, Tabasco, paprika, cayenne, or here in the US, the bell pepper. In the Pacific Islands, some common names are the polo or polofeu in Samoa, and then in Tonga, the polofifisi. So we'll commonly call it Capsicum annuum or peppers, just to be easier throughout this presentation. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide now.
That was great presentation, pronunciation of the name, Sam.
Oh, good. I was working on it.
So next we have history, culture, and uses. So unlike the other plants that were presented earlier today, this actually isn't native to the South Pacific or the Pacific Islands at all. It's actually native to Central and South America, but has since become established as a weed in the Pacific Islands. It's been eaten since 18,000 BC, but it's been cultivated since 18,000 to 15,000 BC. And as such, most plants that have been cultivated for that long have religious significance, and chilies are no different. It's believed that chilies came from the deities as gifts. It is used as food, condiment, and medicine. As medicine, is used to treat toothaches, regulate digestion. Leaves are used to treat skin conditions. Aphrodisiac, torture, discipline, and war is another use of them. And also the chili peppers were used as money. And here we have a picture of a man demonstrating how to use bear spray, which comes from capsicum fruits. And so next slide.
All of those amazing uses that peppers have are in a large part due to its chemical composition. We're going to go through each of them, and we're going to start with vitamins. So let's go to the next slide and jump right into that. So peppers are very vitamin rich, and it's very interesting how vitamin C was found. It was very first isolated in peppers, actually, and this scientist pictured over here, whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, he hated eating peppers. So for whatever reason, he decided to perform a bioassay on them, and he isolated vitamin C, and he actually found out that peppers were very vitamin rich. They were very high in vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin E. They've even done other studies to see that just 100 grams of bell pepper a day will fulfill all of your vitamin A and vitamin C intake. So they're very vitamin rich, and those vitamins play a lot of roles, such as antioxidants and other roles that we're going to get into. But we're going to let Lark talk about flavonoids, which are another important compound. So let's jump to the next slide for that.
Okay, so flavonoids are another group that's, like he said, is found in peppers. The most important property of flavonoids is actually their antioxidant properties, but they're also anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antiviral, and anti-allergenic. They tend to accumulate in the skin of peppers, and quercetin and lutein represent about 41% of the total flavonoid content. And next slide, please.
Carotenoids are another great phytochemical found in Capsicum annuum. And carotenoids are primarily responsible for the pigmentation in plants. If you look at all the beautiful peppers on the left of that slide, that purple, the red, the oranges, all of those colors are due to the carotenoids, which are very strong antioxidants. And in the Capsicum genus alone, there are over 50 types of carotenoids. And more specifically in peppers or Capsicum annuum, the main carotenoids are capsanthin, capsarubin, beta-carotene lutein, and violaxanthin. And there we go. And just like flavonoids, the amount of carotenoids present, it depends greatly on the maturity of the fruit and the color of the fruit as well. And we're going to talk about that in just a second when we talk about alkaloids. So let's go to the next slide. Antioxidants, not alkaloids, sorry.
So here are some alkaloids we're going to talk about, including capsaicinoids. So capsaicinoids, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. It's fine. So capsaicinoids are the compounds that make peppers spicy. There are 4 types. There's capsaicin, dihydrocapsaicin, norhydrocapsaicin, and homocapsaicin. And on the side, we have chemical structures of all of those. And then next slide, please.
So peppers are known for being spicy. And how that works is we have these TRVP1 receptors in our mouths. And when those capsaicinoids come in contact with those receptors, it overwhelms them. And then our body, through a series of neurotransmission, registers that as pain or heat. And that is that spicy or pungent taste or feeling that we get when we eat peppers. Ironically, though, they're used quite a bit in topical medications, and they also have anti-obesity, anti-diabetic, and antifungal properties too, which are amazing. Let's go to the next slide, please.
So before we go on, we want to talk about how to relieve the heat, because before you go off and experiment with all the amazing properties of peppers, we want to make sure you don't hate us. So if you're handling spicy peppers, do not touch your eyes, nose, or other mucous membranes. You will regret it. Do not use water. It will make your life worse. Like dissolves like, so you want to use something that's high in fat, like dairy or coconut milk. And if you're using alternate milks, you want to make sure that it's high enough in fat. So almond milk probably does not have enough fat to cut the heat. So next slide, please.
So just to quickly go over the rest of the alkaloids that are in peppers, capsaicin is another one. It is a capsaicinoid that is very similar to capsaicinoids, but they are not spicy. And if you look at these chemicals that we have pictured on the right side, the capsaicin is on the right, and that has that nitrogen group. And for whatever reason, when that nitrogen group comes into contact with our TRVP1 receptors, we register that as pain or spicy or pungent. But the capsaicin molecule has an oxygen group instead, and we don't register that as spicy for whatever reason. Another alkaloid are the cholistogenes, and they have been shown to inhibit glycosidases and have been looked at as a possible anti-diabetic drug. And the toxicity is unknown, which is really interesting because it's usually one of the first things looked at when they perform bioassays, but we still need more research conducted in that area. Solanine is another alkaloid present in the leaves of Capsicum annuum, and nicotinoids are also present. Let's go to the next slide, please.
So other compounds that we wanted to talk about include N-transferryl octamine, which is associated with cell apoptosis or cell death in HCC cells, and that's the most common liver cancer, and that is found in the roots of Capsicum annuum or peppers. Another cool compound is defenses. Now, animals have defenses, and this is what I knew defenses from, that protect against it has antibacterial properties in animals, but plants have plant defenses, which are cis defenses which are active against fungi, the same way that animal defenses are effective against plants. So I thought that was really cool. So it has some general antifungal properties. It also has some general anti-cancer properties. And the next slide, please.
All of these amazing phytochemicals do serve us a purpose, and they have a lot of different activities, such as the antioxidant activity, antifungal, anti-pain, and others, and we're going to talk about those. So let's dive right into antioxidants. So next slide, please. So will you hit that button again for me, Professor Palu?
Yeah, it's on. Right there. You're talking about antioxidant, right?
Yeah, there should be an image that comes up too.
Oh, okay. Is that it? Oh.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Sorry, there's a little delay on the Facebook. So antioxidants are very important for us, and we've talked about how flavonoids and carotenoids, also not shown on the slide, but in Capsicum annuum are the capsaicinoids. They're very rich antioxidants, and it's very interesting because the amount of flavonoids and carotenoids, it varies with the color and the maturity of the fruit. So using our little image over here, flavonoids, as the fruit matures, the flavonoid content will decrease. Carotenoids are just the opposite though. As the fruit matures, the carotenoid content will increase. So that was just something that was very interesting that we wanted to include. Vitamin E is another phytochemical in Capsicum annuum that is also a very strong antioxidant. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay, so it also has antifungal activity as talked about before. The F48 isolate extracted from immature fruits was able to inhibit the fungus Coltrichium glorospores. And as we mentioned before, defensins have a broad macrofungal activity, specifically thionin, and I'm going to pronounce this Kathy, inhibits Candida species, and Candida species are responsible for thrush infections and vaginal infections, and on whatever side it's going to be for you, that is a microscopic image of Candida. And the next slide, please.
One of the most interesting properties of peppers is their anti-obesity and anti-diabetic properties. So as your body mass increases, your chance of getting diabetes also increases. So by reducing your chance of obesity or your body mass, you can also decrease your risk of diabetes. So they're very linked, which is why we included both of them on this slide. And capsaicinoids specifically, they're able to suppress the body's natural weight gain response to starvation. So when we go hours without eating, we get those hunger hormones that signal that it's time to eat. Capsaicinoids, though, kind of put those off and ignore those hunger signals so you won't eat as much. They also inhibit alpha amylase activity, which in turns, it slows your carbohydrate digestion, which in turn leads to slower and steadier rise in blood sugar. So when we eat, especially carbohydrates, it will spike your blood sugar levels. Capsaicinoids, though, allow that level, instead of spiking very sharply, it raises gradually. So it helps regulate that blood sugar. And they've looked at it, and just as little as just over 2.5 milligrams of capsaicin per mil could increase caloric expenditure rate while reducing calorie intake. It's a very interesting property, and I think it's amazing that even though those capsaicinoids can be really spicy, they also have some very strong benefits for us as well. Let's go to the next slide.
So I'm sorry about the delay, guys. I'm saying as soon as I see it. So analgesic properties that capsaicin or capsicum have is very strong. Pepper extracts exhibited an analgesic one of those days.
Yeah.
Activity at 5, 20, and 80 milligrams per kilogram, and induce central analgesic properties at 80 milligrams per kilogram. Capsaicinoids have actually been used topically to alleviate chronic pain like arthritis and other things. Unfortunately, it's not immediate and requires repeat applications. However, recently, an 8% capsaicin patch was approved that could provide up to 3 months of relief after a 60-minute in-doctor visit application. So next slide, please.
Finally, we're going to discuss the anti-cancer properties. They've done a lot of studies with flavonoids, and they've seen that it helps prevent colon, fibrosarcoma, skin, and oral cancers. And they've done a lot of different studies with different rodents, and it's proven to be very effective. Capsaicinoids are another phytochemical in Capsicum annuum that have shown to be anti-cancer. And these MAPK1 and AKT1, they're oncogenic proteins that help regulate our cell division. So when cells are unregulated, we have certain steps that if a cell isn't divided correctly, it'll get rid of that cell so that we don't get a tumor, for example. So it's very important that these proteins are regulated and they don't just kind of go out of control. They've seen, though, that capsaicinoids can regulate some of these proteins like MAPK1 and AKT1. Another anti-cancer phytochemical is the chlorophyll catabolite, and it does something very similar to the capsaicinoids. It helps regulate that transcription factor, MECO1, and not let it get out of control and have unregulated cell division. So that's a very amazing property, and they haven't done a ton of research at it, but it seems that there's more and more.
So next we're going to talk about future uses. So we want to talk about warming hand sanitizer, weight management aid, and a pet training aid. So next slide, please. So for our first formulation, we figured that in light of the pandemic, hand sanitizers came up a lot. And if you've used hand sanitizer, especially in the winter, you realize that your hands get colder after you use it, which kind of like, you don't want your hands to get more cold. So what we've decided is to use the chili pepper extract, which has natural antimicrobial activities. combine that with the alcohol that would already be in the hand sanitizer with a little bit of aloe vera, glycerol, and stabilizer with a little bit of fragrance so your hands don't smell like a bit of chili extract. And this would also might be helpful for people with Raynaud's syndrome, which is a condition where when they get cold, their blood will leave their extremities and it'll be very painful. And so hopefully this product will make it so they can exist in the winter more comfortably. Next slide, please.
The next possible use is a weight maintenance aid, and we talked about the anti-obesity and anti-diabetic properties of capsaicin. So you could just put that into a supplement powder and add that to a drink. The only issue with that is that it might be spicy, so we'd have to look further into that. But the solution, or how to curb that, would be with capsaicin capsules. You could put it in a capsule and just have it extended release. We also think that it would be a good idea to do a full pepper extract. That way you don't only get the weight maintenance benefits of capsaicin, but you also get the great vitamins and other carotenoids and flavonoids and chemicals that are in Capsicum annuum as well. Next slide.
So for our final formulation, we want to do a pet training aid. So this is Shadow. She was my little sister's rabbit, and she had a little bit of an attitude problem. If somebody made her mad, like didn't give her carrots or kale, but when she wanted and where she wanted, she'd go and chew on the furniture, particularly my parents' music cabinet, which held the piano music next to our piano. And so what my parents did is they put some hot sauce on the wood of the cabinet, and Shadow tried once and she never did it again. So what we were hoping to do is take this concept and apply it to a spray that would be able to protect furniture from animals, furniture, shoes, whatever, from pets eating what they shouldn't. However, this will only work on mammals, since mammals are the only animals that can feel capsaicin's heat, because for whatever reason, that mechanism that causes the pain and the heat is not active in birds or reptiles. And the next slide.
And that concludes our presentation on Capsicum annuum. Thank you very much for listening. The next slide is just the question slide, I believe.
Yeah. So I'd like to thank you, Sam and Lark, for the due diligence you have done in order to review the studies and also to convert a lot of those knowledge back here for a presentation in the constraint of time. So the question is interesting. We always have the same people asking for the tea. Okay, so we know that they're probably tea from the leaves, but they're asking, are there any countries that use the fruit for a tea? Do they dry them down, crush them into powder, and put them into a tea?
So I'm not sure about I can't think of anything that any country currently that makes the fruit explicitly in a tea. I know that ancient Mesoamericans would add peppers to their chocolate drink, which was unsweetened, and so that would be kind of like a tea. But I'm sure somewhere somebody has.
Okay, so the other question that was texted to me is about the you mentioned something about the aphrodisiac property of the pepper. Did the study ever identify the mechanisms?
So I don't think I'll take this one, Sam, if you don't mind. I read the paper.
Yeah, that was your paper, so you go.
That was my paper. So they weren't able to I couldn't find any sources about how it would work. However, I found a paper citing that there were several countries that used, I think it was like the extract of the fruit or ground up fruit to treat impotence.
Okay.
So I think that's probably where it came from.
Okay. I think that's the other questions are very similar to the first one. So the tea is very important, and the pepper. So basically, the anti-cancer effects seems like you need to cook with it, or use them like a Tabasco. I know in Tonga we have what we call vaipolo, which is similar to the Tabasco, but a lot of us have different versions of it. Okay, and if you do it right, it's gonna be very tasty. Okay, so what have you learned from the studies that you have put together? If you can sum it up in one sentence, that's a question I like to pose to each of you.
Sam, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah,
Since I've taken
in one sentence, I would say that we all need to eat more peppers. So that's my sentence, and just to sum it up, I had no idea that there was so many amazing phytochemicals and compounds in peppers, and all of the properties that they had: antifungal, anti-cancer, anti-obesity. It has a lot of amazing qualities, so we need to eat more peppers. That is what I have learned from this.
Awesome. Luck?
And building off of what Sam said, yes, but I also feel like there's so much research out there on peppers that I could not read it all to make the paper or to make the PowerPoint. And so I would love to go. I feel like I just know so little, but yet I know a lot because there's so much more to learn. And I had no idea there was as much to know about peppers either.
Oh, awesome. And congratulations to Sam graduating, and keep in touch. Sam, thank you, Sam, and thank you, Luck, for your hard work. And good night to both of you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one more group, okay, and that's my group. Okay, let me, and my partner, Jared, will join me. And Jared, if you could join me after this song, okay?
We
like to thank our viewers and listeners for the special presentation by the students from Utah Valley University, the Department of Biology. And the class is botany class with special emphasis on ethnobotany. But as you can see, ethnobotany has going to ethnopharmacology at the same time. Okay, this is the last group, and it's my group. So I'd like to turn the time over to Jared. Can you introduce yourselves, where you from, and after that, then we'll hop right into the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. So I'm Jared. I'm a student at UVU. I'm also a biology student, like all of my colleagues. I am hoping to go on to a PhD, whether that is in systems biology or biochemistry. I have yet to figure out. But I've learned a lot from this class, and I hope that my presentation can also do something for those tuning in. My second favorite professor, because my first favorite professor is Dr. Paulo, obviously, always says that he wants us, his students, to see the forest from the trees. So to start out, to introduce the tree that I researched and reviewed, it is the Alarites mollicanus, and it's given a distinction of L, wild, and euphorbiaceae. So L stands for Carl Linnaeus, who was a Swedish taxonomist who chronicled a lot of the species in the Polynesian islands. And then wild is a guy who came through the same islands about 50 years after the fact, and he was from Germany, and he also was a chronicler of species, and he had a different name for it, and when we started to come up with a unified name for this tree, we put them together so that those two names appear on the scientific name as well.
Okay. Do you want me to add in, Sarah? What do you want me to do?
Well, actually, Dr. Paulo, I am ready to do this myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
But if you want to chime in with things that you know that I might not know, then that would be great as well.
No, I just want to, this is commonly known in Tonga, the tui tui, or kukui nut in Hawaii. Okay, so yeah. Everybody who's listening in, this is very important plant. And I like one thing about Jared that I have learned in this semester. He's what I call a one-man gang. Okay, they do it all. And even though we talk here and there and have a conversation about the traditional use of this tui tui or kukui nut, this man taken upon himself, and as you can see, his goal is to get a doctorate degree. I'm not surprised. I'll turn the time over to you, Jared.
Okay. So like Dr. Paulo said, many of you are going to recognize this tree immediately as soon as you see it in the next slide. So this is the candlenut tree. And it has colloquial names across all of Polynesia. In Hawaii, it's called the kukui nut tree. It's also the state tree there. In Tonga, the tui tui. In Indonesia, it's called the kamiri tree. And then in India, it's also referred to as the Indian walnut. There are plenty of other names. In Fiji, they call it the Laosi tree. In the Marquesas Islands, they call it the Ama tree. In Tahiti, they call it the Iri tree. And all of these, I bring up all of these different names for the same tree because I want to demonstrate how ubiquitous this tree is across all of the tropical islands. It is a very well-known and well-used tree traditionally. And I believe that's everything I have for this slide.
Yeah, go ahead. We're on the next slide.
So we as humans only seem to care about things if it's close to us. So I included a phylogeny of humanity's evolutionary history just to show what it kind of looks like, what a phylogeny looks like. And you go through all of these different classifications. You go through the domain, the kingdom, the phylum, the subphylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And all of those things are meant to describe a certain aspect of or a certain characteristic that will group those species together, or those those species together. And so I just wanted to walk through a couple of these. The phylum is Spermatophyta, which means that they're spermatophytes. They're seed bearing. Angiosperm or angiospermae means that they will that this tree will have flowers and it'll have seeds inside of its nut or its carpel. The dicot or dicotyledone it means that there are two leaves generally associated with the seed, and euphorbiales or euphorbiaceae means that there are it generally has three-lobed schizocarps, which is important in kind of like a general framework because it tells us that these nuts are going to float. On top of that, it has alternate simple leaves. So there are two types of leaves that you'll see with it. And then it's also monoecious, which means that it can self-fertilize. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need the spores, from other trees. It can do it itself. And the reason why I take such time to go through this phylogeny is that if you don't, this is a kind of like a personal philosophy of for myself. But I think that if you don't know your place in the world, if you don't know where you are, it's very hard to make any progress. And so that's what I wanted to do with these first few slides is I just wanted to point out how, point out where the Alarites mollicana tree lies in the world. And so that way we can move forward and understand the tree better. Okay, next slide. So the geographic distribution and habitat of the Alarites mollicana tree is fairly broad. It will be found throughout the tropics, and this shows that this graphic right here, it shows that it shows in the United States. I think it's just demonstrating that the United States does hold some trees, some candlenut trees. I don't think that they find them in outside of the tropics or outside of really warm and wet climates. So Alaska probably does not encounter very many candlenut trees. However, so the distribution of this plant, of this tree, is driven mostly by ocean currents. Because it floats, it's going to move along the ocean currents, and that's why you see it in those areas that that are right around the equator. And yeah, so I thought that was a really cool part of the tree, is that the distribution is by ocean currents, kind of like how the palm tree or the coconuts travel. Next slide. So the general description of the kukui nut tree is that it's found in so many places, from Brazil to Uganda to Hawaii, Tonga. Like I talked about earlier, it has alternate simple leaves. And so there's those round ones that you can see underneath the flower. But up in the back, I think you can see that there's some three-pronged leaves as well. And those flowers are going to be very small in comparison to the leaves. The tree stands at most 25 meters tall. It flowers throughout the year, and most everything about this tree is cytotoxic. So the leaves, they're toxic. The fruit, they're alkaloid, which means it's bitter. And then the seeds, they're going to be bitter as well, but they're also pretty proteinaceous, which means they're going to be something you can eat and get some sort of nutritional benefit just from the grams of protein that are found in it. Next slide. So traditional uses of the kukui nut tree, there are so many of them. First off, it's known in Hawaii as the light tree, and that's what kukui means, literally, is light. And the reason why it's called that is because when you open up the nut, there is oil inside, or fatty acids inside, and you can use that for fuel, for lighting your home. And then there are other things that have been discovered about the way that it's been used traditionally. For example, in Hawaii, they use the pa-kukui farming system, which generally meant that they're going to use the barks, the nuts, the seeds as fertilizer. And commonly, like how it's done in the US, we use certain crops to turn over the soil. Traditionally, Hawaii used the kukui nut tree to turn over the soil and make land more arable. And because of the distribution of this tree, you'll see it develop really quickly on newly developed volcanic islands, which is, I think it's pretty cool. It's like, yeah, just how resilient this tree is, it's just crazy. Next slide. Okay, so the chemical components of the kukui nut is mainly fatty acid. So it's roughly 90% fatty acid, unsaturated esters. And I gave you an example of one right here on the right. Unsaturated just means that it's not fully saturated with hydrogens along the chain. So this hydrogen chain has a double bond here at 13. And that's one example of a fatty acid. It is not the fatty acid found in kukui nut oil, because I couldn't find an image of just one. There are a couple of them that the kukui nut has. On top of that, there are I think I'm going to botch this, but they're called amyrenones, both alpha and beta amarin, N-hentriacantane, beta cytosterol, and stigmasterol. Those are all used to. Those are secondary metabolites of the kukui nut tree, found in places like the bark, the leaves, and in lower. It's lower in the nuts, but yeah. So in those areas, you find those chemicals, and they're secondary metabolites. I'll cover them more later. But the one that is most important is the secondary prime O rhamnosilswerticin, found by Quintao et al. 2019. That's a flavonoid, and flavonoids are generally known to be used for cell signaling pathways. They are characteristically antioxidant, and they're as a secondary metabolite, they have a lot of just benefit to any kind of application. So you could rub it on your arms, you could potentially ingest it, and because of the antioxidant constituent, this flavonoid, the body will use that extra molecule to capture free radicals, and we've talked about that extensively today in other presentations, so I won't go over it yet. Next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the biodiesel capacity of, well, I didn't really mention that. I bring up biodiesel as a capacity for this oil because it is primarily a fatty acid, right? And there have been plenty of studies that have shown through thermal gravimetry and derivative thermal gravimetry that the stability of these extracts are pretty useful. So if you do a pure extract of just aqueous extract, you will find stability around 211 degrees Celsius, and that's pretty hot. Yeah, that doesn't make for a very good biodiesel. You have to burn things really hot in order to get it to be to burn and to use it as fuel. However, if you were to use ethanol or methanol, those respectively have stabilities at around 118 and 121 degrees Celsius. And that is a much more feasible degree or temperature at which you can extract heat. It is also, next slide, it's also it's a cytotoxic biodiesel, which means people don't generally eat it. It's also a very long-lasting fuel because of its unsaturated nature. And then most, in comparison to other biodiesels, those are edible. Those are usually taken from animal fats or plant extracts, which makes them edible. And because of that, that makes kukui nut oil much more likely to be adopted as a biodiesel. And kukui nut oil is far more ubiquitous than that of animal fats and plant extracts that are edible. So next slide, I'll get into the pharmacological activity of the kukui nut. So there are three main things that I think are worth highlighting pharmacologically. One is the anti-nociceptive, two is the anti-inflammatory nature, and then the three antimicrobial properties. So let's go into the anti-nociceptive with the next slide. So nociception is sensing pain signals and transmitting them through the peripheral nervous system, which is like your hands and your feet, up through the body, which to the central nervous system, which is anywhere from your spinal cord up to your brain. And nociception usually doesn't always go through that whole process of sending it all the way up through the arm and up through the spinal cord to the brain so that it can send another signal back for like a reaction. Anyway, sorry. It only does that every once in a while. Your body can react without having, anyway. So anti-nociceptive activity blocks the pain receptors from signaling the pain to the body. And one of the studies that I reviewed demonstrated that the flavonoid constituents of 2'-O rhamnosilswertecin, it was proven to combat the pain of rheumatoid arthritis in lab mice. And I found that just incredible because rheumatoid arthritis is a really painful disease. And I think that a lot of people go through a lot of pain unnecessarily. And so having a potential application that can remove that pain, I think that would be really helpful to people. Let's go on to the next slide. So flavonoids are secondary metabolites, like I've talked about. They're polyphenolic in shape, which means that they have those rings. And so they protect the body from oxidative damage. So ubiquitously, they're considered antioxidants. This is a picture of several examples of flavonoids. The one that I am going to show you, I showed you earlier in the chemical components. I didn't bring it in here. We can just go into the next slide. So those flavonoids are also used to protect against inflammation. So Sesca et al., this group in Brazil, they observed that fever, pain, hepatitis, headaches, gastric ulcers, they can all be treated using methanol extracts of kukui nut or seed or leaf. And one of the potential future studies that we could do on the kukui nut is how do non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen or Tylenol, how do they compare to the effects of kukui nut oil or extracts? And I think that would be a really great future study. Next slide. Another property of kukui nut oil is its potential for antimicrobial activity. So both aqueous and methanol extracts are cytotoxic. And with cytotoxicity, there comes the potential for mutagenesis, which is the alteration of genes just by mere presence. But Fukuda de Castillo et al., they proved that in vitro assays and in vivo assays, which means both in a lab and in live settings, mutagenesis did not occur. So part of this has to do with the inability of these molecules to diffuse through large vertebral gut linings. However, it doesn't mean it won't work well as an antimicrobial. And topical applications or daily vitamins might be a potential future study for the antimicrobial activity. Next slide. So giardiasis is a parasitic disease that is caused by this small organism called Giardia, and it causes lots of things, including vomiting and diarrhea. But this extract, the kukui nut extract, has proven to be to fight giardiasis, or rather that it's susceptible to the antimicrobial activity of those extracts, which I think is a great thing. There are lots of other synthetic drugs that are very hard to access, and giardiasis usually happens to people in the tropics, and so you take inaccessible drugs and a really common disease. I don't think that that's a very good combination, and so having kukui nut extract as something that you could potentially ingest to void yourself of giardiasis would be a really great thing. And kukui nuts are ubiquitous, right? Like we were talking about. Next slide. So future studies ought to review all of this information, and on top of that, it should focus on replicating these studies. A huge barrier to these extracts being used in medicine is more studies, and the FDA is a huge barrier. And I'm not saying that the FDA has bounds in all across the world, but it is a pretty good stamp of approval. Next slide. Actually, I think you can skip to the conservation status. So the conservation status of this tree is of least concern. It is a broad global distribution, and so it's found everywhere. It has a pretty great moderate altitudinal range from 0 meters to 1,000 meters. And so rising sea levels, rising temperatures, that's not going to harm this species. So least concern. Next slide. The candlenut tree holds incredible potential, both as non-edible biodiesel fuel and as an anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial. With more studies, I think that kukui nut extracts will demonstrate or become more popularly used, not just in traditional medicine, but also not just in traditional application, but also in the scientific community, in medicine, in the medicinal community. And that is my presentation. I'll take questions now.
Oh, sorry, Jared. Do you have the product that you made?
I don't have it on me, but
Oh.
yeah, I made a lotion for for this project. I mixed it with parts of ylang-ylang extract, and it is a pretty good perfume, if I don't say so myself.
Yeah, I remember when you have it on different concentration and you say it with the class. Um, that's great, amazing that you actually take the plant and take what you cut out of it and mix it. Seems like you're ready to do your own cosmetic company. Or maybe your wife will will do that. And
Maybe.
so, did you mention was there any tea made from the bark or just the leaves?
I don't think that there would be because it's a pretty bitter tree. I don't think that, and it's cytotoxic as well. So any extract, any tea would cause people to likely have um, lesser gut health. Like you would destroy your microbiome, and so you would probably be going
Hmm.
to the bathroom 2 or 3 times a day after that.
Okay. Um, so the application you made, the antioxidant property of the coconut oil, and you mix it with the what we call in Tonga the mohokoi, or the Tahitian call it mosaoi, and I forgot what the Samoans call them. Maybe the same as Tahitian, but it's quite interesting that you mix them together and everybody was in the class. They love it. Okay. So the application to the skin, the antioxidant, and the other properties that you also indicated here are very important for this plant. And the reason why I brought that up is because in Polynesia, I think majority of us with the oil, and sometimes we break the nuts itself and the flesh, mix them together with the pako in Tonga, and add the flowers of the mohokoi and chew them together, and then use that as a skin treatment that able to remove the oils from your skin, remove the dirt, and after you take a shower, your skin is soft and smells nice. Okay, that is fascinating, and we appreciate you taking the time to put together and review the studies and then present them on a presentation, given the time constraint. I think that's probably it for tonight, Jared, and I'll contact you. And you're not graduating, right?
No, I have one more semester. So
Okay, great. So I will see you around on campus and we'll communicate via email. So thank you for your hard work. And like what I said before, you are a one-man gang. And I'm not surprised you're going to go after a PhD. So keep on the hard work, my friends. Say hello to your little ones for me. I thought your little one is going to join you.
yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. But we appreciate you, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. So let me play a song for you, and after that, I like to finish off with I like to go back to the noni and finish off what has been asked during the program. Okay, this is very important. So. Would like to thank you for tuning in to the Market Tarifalao Global Media Network television and radio combo known as Pacifica. Pacifica is where all the Pacific Islanders get together, and because we all understand English for the most part, so therefore the broadcasts are done in the English language. Okay. And before I finish this program tonight, I'd like to just point out something because it's very important. Because our ancestors used noni for thousands of years. And the fruits, okay, they fermented the fruits. That was the technology available to our ancestors. Now, interestingly, from a phytochemical point of view, when you ferment the noni, there are a lot more health phytocompounds in it compared to when you pick the fruit, let it soften up for a couple weeks, and then you crush them in what we call puree. This is kind of like the applesauce. Okay, that is the very reason why I created this product. Okay, it's called Nukuhiva. And in this product is distributed right now over 80 countries worldwide. Okay. So Nukuhiva combines the modern technology, which is pureeing the noni, with the fermented noni nectar from our ancestors. They always pay tribute to our ancestors for the great knowledge we have and the medicinal plants they left for us to help us in our health and, yes, in our wallet as well. Okay? So, but the idea, my friends, is never say never that you cannot put any of our medicinal plants in a product and be sold worldwide. Now, interestingly, here is one of the products I also formulated. This is after the Tongan way of doing what we call in Tonga whakatafe, meaning let it trip. Inspired by traditions perfected for our day. The noni leaf extract serum, used for wounds, pain, especially for those that have the, when you go and stay out there in the sun, and a lot have the, what we call in Tonga fohia. This will take care of that. Okay, burns, this will take care of that. So the leaves is also used for medicinal tea, and Japan is the #1 consumer of the noni leaf tea. Think about that. Okay, other countries are using the plants that our ancestors given us. It's time that we get on it. So, in the company that I work for now, they have the noni, not in a bottle, but you can put that in a sachet, just like that. Okay, all you gotta do is tear it off, put them into your water bottle, shake it up, and you drink it. Okay, the evolution's going from bottle to a sachet right there. So it's very important, my friends, to know that. So, and I think a lot of you have seen the banner also included the limu, the seaweed. Okay, a lot of us may be familiar with the seaweed, with the application in food such as sushi. But we eat seaweeds back in the islands, and there are in Tonga alone 185 different species of limu. How many of them that Tongans do eat? I would say probably 5 or less. Okay, but they're here. One of the seaweeds in here is called mosuku. In Tonga, we call the limu tangau. Okay? So let it be known that it's important to know our ancestors' medicinal plants, why they work, because it will come to a place near you. Whether it be dietary supplement or pharmaceutical drugs, which will be coming from Dr. Paul Allen Cox's team, from the medicinal plants that the Samoans used, is called mamala. It has a very strong inhibition properties against the HIV viruses. Stay tuned for those when it comes up. Well, that concludes the special presentation from coming to you from Utah Valley University students in my botany class with special emphasis on ethnobotany, ethnopharmacology. And from the Department of Biology and to the chair, Dr. Stouffer, we thank her for the support, and would like also to thank Emily Tofu Makahili and Sione Makahili for allowing us to broadcast on the Vake Talifalau Global Media Network. Once again, if you are interested in doing programming for the Pacific as a whole, the Pacifica television and radio combo is the way to go. If you are interested, you can message me, my cell phone 801-310-4060, and I will connect you to them, and then they will take care of the rest. And yes, I can stream you live from here in Utah through the Pacifica. Okay? And from here to our main station in San Francisco, California, we bid you farewell and good night. We are grateful for the time you have taken to be with us and share your time and share the program. I know that these students have a wonderful experience to broadcast what they have worked on, the the knowledge they have gained to all of us Pacific Islanders and those who are not Pacific Islanders. But we're all islanders, nevertheless. Some are small, some are big islands. Okay, we thank you and good night.